Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the United Staff for another episode of FPL. I'm Prasham here with Shivan to take you through game week 9. Till now, for 8 game weeks, KU's 11 has pretty much been on top for all this while in the United Star FPL
Wow.
mini league with 554 points, which is actually quite high. He must be ranked quite highly in India as well. And
Yeah.
he's doing pretty well. I'm stuck on fourth position. I had 15 points on my bench last week, so that was quite frustrating. But game week 9 is here, and it is after 2 weeks of international break. So we're going to get straight into this with the hot topic of injuries and what team to start with other than Liverpool when we talk about injuries. Shivan, what do you do of Liverpool defenders? What do you do of Mo Salah? What do you do of Liverpool's midfield? They have injuries everywhere.
Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks for us with no FPL, and also all our assets are getting injured on international break. So I think with Liverpool, with their entire first choice defense out, I think it's time to get them out of your team because no Gomez, no Van Dijk, no Trent. I think for around 4 weeks, and Robertson is also doubt. He missed the Scotland's last game. So if you have any of them in your team, I think it's high time to get them out because Liverpool aren't looking that great defensively anyway, and also. They are probably injured, and they don't have Fabinho and Henderson as that protection as well. They both are injured as well. So I think it's time to get them out of your team. Now with Mohamed Salah, he's only out for 1 week. I think he'll miss the Leicester game and then he'll come back. So if you can afford to keep him in your team for this 1 week, I think you would because he's such a good. Liverpool have a good run of fixtures from an attacking point of view in the next few 2-3 weeks. So I think if you can afford to keep him because it's only 1 week he's going to be missing.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I think a lot of people have jumped the gun on Salah and are saying, "Oh, we'll use a free transfer on this." I don't think it makes sense actually to take Mohamed Salah out this early in the scheme of things, because he might just turn up for the Leicester game as well, since that's on Monday. So if he returns a negative test on a Thursday, for example, he can turn out for the Leicester game as well, according to the rules. But this brings me to, you said to transfer out Liverpool defenders. So that brings me to us two important questions. Number one is that
Yeah.
one of the direct transfers logically would be to a player who's also carrying a knock now in Ben Chilwell. So one of the most point scoring defenders this season has been Chilwell, and Chelsea's defense is looking solid. So which defenders would you get in, and what would you do for the likes of Ben Chilwell? Would you take him out or would you keep him?
Yeah, so the Chelsea defense is doing great recently. I think Chilwell has some 41 points in the last 5 weeks, and he does have a back spasm right now. I don't know how serious that is. I think he'll still be in contention to start for even England for the next game, and even for Chelsea. I think he'll be fine. He's a doubt right now, but I think he'll be fine to start on the weekend. So I think Chelsea defenders are probably the number one target for most people switching. So that's either Chilwell, or who's 5.9 right now, or even Zuma, who's looking great from an attacking point of view in terms of the set pieces. He's already scored 2 goals this season, or even Reece James. Problem with James is that we don't know if he's going to start over Aspilicueta. I think he's got that place nailed, but Aspilicueta, who's the club captain, might come in at any point of time. But Chelsea, after Thiago Silva and Edouard Mendy have come in the team, they're looking really solid defensively. I think they kept a clean sheet for 5 games in a row. So
Yeah.
they are doing pretty well, and they have a nice fixture with Newcastle, who's not a great attacking team. So that's one team you can consider. And other defensive options, there's someone like Alex Telles with Luke Shaw out injured, and United have a good fixture. That's a nice option. Or otherwise, you can look at the City defense. City have actually looked good defensively, not
Hmm.
attacking wise, but they've looked good defensively this season. So you have either Kyle Walker, who's a little bit more expensive, or you have Ruben Dias, who's a safe pick, who's going to start every game and he has that set piece threat. Or you have someone like a João Cancelo, who we don't know who will start, but he's actually looked really good in terms of chances created. So these are the three options you can look at City.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I'd also want to throw in a couple of names as well in Tariq Lamptey, maybe, if you want to save a lot of money. I know Tariq Lamptey is obviously not reliable in terms of defensive points, but in terms of offensive points, he's been giving a lot.
Yeah.
Another defender that sort of I've been sort of impressed with this season is again James Justin from Leicester City. I think he's doing a fabulous job in terms of both offensive and defensive points. And one
Yeah.
defender to watch out for if you don't have him in your team, or if you have him, then you should get him out maybe, is Castagna. Once Castagna comes back from injury, he might be a big replacement for an Arnold or a Robertson, because it seems like he's giving those points at a much lower price. But now that I've spoken about Leicester, this was my second question to you with regards to Liverpool. Do you think you should bring in a Harvey Barnes or a Jamie Vardy in for this game week, looking at how shaky Liverpool's defense will be?
I don't think that's a bad option because Leicester have two good fixtures after this. They have Fulham at home. I think they have one more nice, easy fixture in game week 11, which is I can't remember. Anyway, so Liverpool are going to play a high line, so there's going to be a lot of space in behind them. And we know Jamie Vardy loves scoring against big teams. He loves to play with that space. He loves to run at the defense. So if I think this is a good option, especially if you're wildcarding, having someone like a Jamie Vardy right now is a great option because they have Fulham and they have Sheffield United the next two fixtures. So it's actually a great captaincy shout also for the next 2 weeks. So it's a great differential. Harvey Barnes, I'm not so sure because he lost his place in the team last week. He didn't start, but Jamie Vardy definitely is a great captain shout if you want to get someone like Harry Kane out of your team because now Kane has some tough fixtures with City and Chelsea and Arsenal coming up.
Yeah.
So if you want to do Kane to Vardy switch, that would actually be a really nice switch.
Yeah, so Shivan, this was actually my next question about Tottenham. Now, a lot of people have doubled up. Myself, I've doubled up on Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. Now, to these managers, what would you advise? Which one of these players would you take out, or do you take out both of them? Because at the end of the day, Spurs look like they will score goals against whichever team they play. I mean, last time they played a big team, they ended up scoring six. So, what do you think? Would you keep one of them, or would you take both of them out? And if one, which one?
Yeah, so I'm in a similar position. I've got both Son and Kane in my team. But actually, if you look at the underlying numbers in the first 4 games of the season, they look great. They were scoring goals for fun and they were looking quite tight defensively as well. But in the next 4 games, they actually struggled to score. Like they struggled to get a goal against West Brom. They scored in the 89th minute. So I think it's time to get it both of them out of your team gradually. So this week, I think Son is the first to go because he scored 8 goals this season, but out of only some 3.1 xg. So he's not matching up those numbers. He's overperforming. So he's scoring at a higher rate than expected. So he's bound to stop that scoring rate. So Son is the one to be out of your team because in these games against a high quality opposition like City or Chelsea or Arsenal, Harry Kane has a much more high probability of scoring through penalties and assists or through some sort of deflection or some sort of set piece.
Yeah. Just to
So
add a
I think
caveat to
Kane,
that
we
also,
can,
Shivan,
yeah,
that Kane has had the most shots in the Premier League. He's also got the most assists and he's also racking up the goals. So obviously he's got most shots from outside the box as well. So obviously Harry Kane is obviously
yeah.
looking like the better option than Son. But also one more thing I wanted to add to that is I don't think it's time to get rid of both of them because even if Spurs score only one goal, it seems like at least either Kane will score or assist. He's going to be involved with it. So it can be a guarantee of you can have a bank of
Yeah.
about 7 or 8 points, and every second or third week, this player can easily get a double-digit haul or even a 20 plus point haul because Kane has got a hat trick in him. We all know that.
Yeah. The question with who to get rid of is who you're going to get in for them.
Yeah.
So for Heung-min Son, there's so many good midfield options. You have Jack Grealish, you have Sterling, you have Salah, you have James Rodriguez, you have Ziyech or Pulisic, who are the Chelsea midfielders. So now we have so many midfield options that moving Son to anyone becomes really easy. So we can upgrade him if even a Bruno Fernandes or Rashford because they have some nice easy fixtures. So you can upgrade him or you can downgrade him to get some money. With Kane, I don't think apart from him, there's no other premium forward who's worth the money. So if you have to transfer Kane out, it's either to a 6 million or 7 million forward like a Bamford or a Watkins or a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or we have to wait to see what the City situation is like. Is Aguero going to come back fit, or is Jesus going to keep scoring and keep that starts up? So if City, who have a nice run after game week 10, if they look like the team that you should jump on in terms of attack, then get Kane out. But otherwise, I'd agree that you should keep Kane right now, especially for the next fixture because there's so many other fires in our team in terms of injuries that you don't want to waste a transfer on Kane who's gonna score.
Yeah, also Shivan, there's an interesting point you said that there isn't a premium striker, but Timo Werner has scored 4 goals in 4 games. and he's worth 9.5. So
Yeah.
if you're looking for a bank, if you're looking for a banker who's going to score about 7 or 8 points a game, then Werner is not a bad option. Another option obviously is the phenomenon Jamie Vardy. We've already spoken about him. Somehow in every game, doesn't matter for how many
Yeah.
minutes he plays, he finds a way to find the back of the net. So that's another interesting option. But
The
you mentioned
yeah.
the two interesting players which have some question I want to ask you about is Everton. You spoke about James Rodriguez and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, most teams have doubled up on Everton as well. Most fan managers rather.
Yeah.
So, what would you advise them? Would you keep both, or is it time to move on from one of them?
I think it's time to move on from one of them because Everton's numbers in the last 4 weeks have been quite poor. So they won their first 4 games in a row, but after that they had a lot of injuries. We had Richarlison has been out, Alan Coleman, even Michael Keane and Decore have missed some games. So they struggled in terms of the injuries, which has affected the balance of the team. And defensively, they look quite poor because if you see, James Rodriguez doesn't really offer much defensively. So they're having to do a lot of work for him. And I think that's affected the entire balance of the team. And opponents have figured out how to play Everton. So in terms of options, I think I'd still keep Dominic Calvert-Lewin because he's
Yeah.
still going to score most weeks. But I think James Rodriguez has a better options now apart from him, like as
Yeah,
with the
and I
Grealish
think
or
either
a Ziyech.
you can either upgrade, or even you can go to someone like a Daniel Podence who seems to be starting every game now, and he is also quite returning quite a few points. There's
Or a
also
Jota.
there, there is Jota, there is David Moyes' Fellaini reincarnation, Susek. He's also scored in the last game. I had him on my bench, so that hurt a bit. So these and West Ham, mind you, are very easy fixtures. So that's
Yeah.
something that is also an interesting option. Now, moving on to you mentioned Kevin De Bruyne and Sergio Aguero. Manchester City have scored, I think, 8 goals in their last 7 games. I think so. It's a
Yeah.
quite appalling. I mean, last season they'd score 8 goals in 2 games, but so it's a quite appalling return for them. So, what do you think? Is it City are underperforming and they'll continue to underperform, or are they just not creating the chances?
No, I don't think they're underperforming. If you look at the expected goals, it's actually quite similar to what they've scored. So they're not creating enough chances. I think it's a mixture of not having a striker on their team. Also, it's a mixture of uh, Guardiola playing a more defensive style after that Leicester game where they got ripped open by Vardy and co. I think Guardiola's been more, um, let's say, he's not been as expansive as he was in previous games, and also they've had some injury issues. They've played with Foden as a false nine, they played with Torres as a false nine. So I think Guardiola's still working out his best system this season. We've seen in the Champions League they've been quite good in the Champions League in terms of scoring goals, but in the Premier League they've just not worked it out. So I think we have to wait and see if they're going to improve in the next few weeks before we can jump on them, because
Right.
they're not looking like the City of old. It's a different City. Is Guardiola looking to leave after this season? There's so many questions up in the air right now.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think the wait and watch strategy is better with City. I mean, you could be brave and gamble on taking a De Bruyne in and he'll give you 15 points this week. It's possible. It's City. Anything can happen. But I want to take a more
Yeah.
pragmatic approach with City this season. So that brings me to the club on the other side of the river, sort of, with Man United. Another team that has been sort of very up and down this season. But Bruno Fernandes seems
Yeah.
to be delivering points consistently, irrespective of what the result is. So then, would you bring him in as a premium midfielder, or would you gamble on a Rashford, who also, by the way, is taken a knock and is not sure of starting?
I would not bring in Bruno Fernandes. I think he's the biggest trap this season so far in terms of FPL because of his price. He's not worth that 10.6 million compared to the other midfield options because the plain fact majority of his points are coming from unsustainable methods. So it's coming from penalties and it's coming from long shots, which aren't really high probability, high XG chances. So yeah, he had a great game against Everton, but before that he had I think three poor fixtures against Başakşehir, Arsenal, and Chelsea. So I don't see him being a sustain. I think away from home is a great option, but you want a 10.5 million midfielder on your team to be able to captain him in home fixtures against West Brom. But United are struggling to create in those types of games. They're struggling to beat a low block. So I don't think I'd get Bruno Fernandes because I can't trust him with a captaincy right now. I can't expect him to get a 15 pointer against West Brom at home. He he can end up getting 15 pointer at Everton away in a expansive game. But in the games where you expect your players to score, he's not going to get that. He's not worth the 10.5 million. So I would not go for him in my team.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that's an interesting perspective. He has got the fifth highest points
Yeah.
this year in FPL terms. So in terms of premium midfielders, only Mo Salah has done better than him. The players above him are Jack Grealish, Wilf Zaha, and Son. Okay, Son is a premium midfielder for a cheaper price. You can say put it that way. But these are the players who are above him. So in terms of points, he is returning relatively is returning more than what other premium midfielders are doing in like the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, for example. But yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective about sustainability and whether can he do it every week, or are you fine with having a midfielder who gets 15 points, goes away for 2 3 weeks, doesn't do anything, and then gets 15 points again. So that's a question that managers have to take a
Yeah.
call on. Now there is one midfielder that we've not mentioned till now is Wilfred Zaha. What do you do with Wilfred Zaha? It seems like he's playing in that attacking role. He's playing as a striker. He's returning heavy points. So do you bring Zaha in for a James or maybe even a Pulisic? If you have Pulisic in your team, do you bring Zaha in? Is he a sustainable option? Because we know Zaha over the years is a very erratic player.
Yeah, I've had a love-hate relationship with Zaha over the years in my FPL playing days. But I think now with the emergence of Eberechi Eze and Jordan Ayew and other attacking options that Crystal Palace have, the pressures of Zaha to score. So we don't have two players marking him every game and fouling him outside um, near the uh, uh, near the
Near the
D or
penalty
near the
box. Yeah.
edge of the pitch. Yeah. So I think Zaha is looking more potent this season because he's not the only option Crystal Palace have. So I think he's starting to show some consistency in his game. And I think Tifo Football did a really great video on him
Yeah.
recently. Like if you all want, you can check that out as well. So he's becoming better this season. So definitely he's becoming an option. And Crystal Palace have good fixtures now. So if you want to remove James and you don't have Jack Grealish on your team, definitely get in Wilfred Zaha.
So between Zaha and Grealish, Shivan, which one would you pick?
I'd go for Jack Grealish. He has the better upside, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I think it's a toss of the coin if Zaha can maintain his form. But I think Aston Villa have looked a better team than Palace at least going forward.
Overall,
Uh,
they are a better team.
Now,
Yeah.
my final question in terms of transfers is the best option for a low strike budget striker Che Adams right now.
Well, I have Trey Adams in my team, so I want to say yes. But I think the best option is a toss up between Ollie Watkins and Patrick Bamford. So, yes, Trey Adams has been scoring well and he's been returning, but I think his XG isn't matching up to the numbers he's been performing. But with Danny Ings injured, is Trey Adams the
Exactly.
new focal point of the team? We don't know that. We don't know that yet. But I think Patrick Bamford and Ollie Watkins they are in better teams. I think Aston Villa leads. They are more attacking teams, and they are putting up better numbers as well. So I think they are the two best options in terms of cheap strikers. But if you have Adams in your team, please hold him because he's really performing well in the last few weeks, and I think he's really showed for managers who've shown the faith after that poor first 4 weeks. He's really repaid that.
Yeah. Yeah. So now let's wrap this up, Shivan. I think we've gone over all the players, all the different positions. Let's wrap this up
Yeah,
with captaincy choices, keeping in mind Man City is playing against Leicester City. Liverpool is playing. Man City is playing against Spurs and Liverpool is playing against Leicester City. So
yeah.
some of the big teams are out of the picture. Everton don't look as good as they did before. So is Bruno Fernandes at home the best captaincy choice then?
For people who have Bruno Fernandes, they should definitely captain him. I think Sadio Mane is a great captaincy option because he'll become the focal point of the team in the absence of Salah. And otherwise, I think I'm looking at that Newcastle versus Chelsea fixture, and it looks like a great avenue for points. So you can captain Ziyech or you can captain Werner, but if this is a maverick punt, but in a week where teams are playing the good teams are playing against each other, go for someone like Reece James. So he's really low owned, and Chelsea are they're a good defensive team, and Reece James is putting up great numbers in terms of crossing and in terms of chances created. So if he starts, he can have a 12 pointer, 15 pointer. I know it sounds a bit absurd, but why not go for it in a week like this if you want to catch up to your rivals? This is the best time to do so. So if you're a differential captain, go for someone like a Reece James or even Ben Chilwell if he's
Yeah.
fit.
I agree with the Chelsea West Brom thing. I think I'm thinking Hakim Ziyech might be the differential captain because his ownership is not that high and
No.
he is looking fantastic, to be honest. I mean, his left leg is absolutely like a wand, as Chilwell described it. So, in
Yeah.
terms of FPL points against a West Brom team that's there for the taking, I think Ziyech is my number one captaincy pick. Actually, I think Ziyech, I think a Chelsea player, it could be Werner, Ziyech, Havertz, Pulisic if he's fit. Any of these players should be your number one captaincy pick this week. My Maverick punt is actually going to be Jamie Vardy. It doesn't sound as absurd, but the fact that he's playing Liverpool away, first of all, Vardy somehow always shows up in big games, and secondly, that Liverpool defense is there for the taking. It's inexperience, and we know what Vardy does to inexperienced defenses. So I think Vardy could really bully this Liverpool defense and make the most out of it and maybe even get 2 goals. So my Maverick punt for this week is going to be Jamie Vardy, not because the player Jamie Vardy, but because of the fixture that he has. Otherwise, the player Jamie Vardy is a captaincy pick almost every other week. But thanks, Shivan, for joining us. Do join our mini league of the United Star. The links are in the description. The codes are in the description. And we'll see you all soon. Let us know what you all think about your captaincy choices. And we hope all the best for the week. And let's see. I hopefully won't have 15 points on my bench this week.
See you.